Really speaking, this rebalancing of the global economy has been taking place for several centuries. If you look at the year 1500, for example, China and India together contributed some 60% of the world GDP. But because of innovation, because of technology, because of US, because of Europe primarily, and then later on the US becoming centers of consumption, because of better policies, because of adoption of free enterprise, for many, many reasons, by the year 1900, for example, the US and China, the India and China contributed something like 4 or 5% of the world GDP. But if you see that graph, that graph begins to take a turn somewhere around 1970 or 1960. And the reason is China. China was beginning to come on. India was progressing much more than what it was doing in the earlier part of the last century, and also for the last 300-400 years. So the rebalancing of the world economy has been going on for several centuries. But actually, if you see that numbers from 1970 onwards, there is a huge acceleration of that rebalancing that is happening. And I think that is what is going to define or redefine the partnership around the world. And why is it accelerated rebalancing of the world global economy taking place? I believe there are two reasons for it. And I mentioned it in the inaugural address this morning. One reason is that the Western world, for whatever historic reasons, consumption reasons, the Western world is debt-ridden. It's losing its competitiveness. And it has, for one reason or the other, lived beyond its means for many, many years. But at the same time, it has retained its innovative capability, it has retained its tenacity to get out of difficulties, it has retained its technological strength, it has retained its managerial strength, it has retained lots of positive things that can get individuals and nations out of difficulties. At the same time, there is this emerging world that is coming, emerging worlds, which are the new centers of consumption, which are the new centers of competitiveness. So there are some huge shifts that are happening in the world, and that huge shift is making this rebalancing of the global economy really accelerate. If you see that graph between 1500 and 1900, it was probably slow and so on. Between 1960 to now, it's quite fast. And I would imagine for the next 2 or 3 decades, it's going to be even accelerated even further. It is this global accelerating nature of this global economy that's going to decide the relationship between countries.